Thank you for joining Worldwide Slot Car Chat, number 70 whatever. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. Beautiful, great big group of people here. A whole lots of cameras in use too. We have 26 participants and 20 of them are using cameras, which is awesome. We got Petrucci, Neil, Dennis, Alan, Leo, Luff, John, Gaza, Don, Mike, Jim, Graham, Garth, Wayne, Dewan, Charles, Wayne, another John, and Jeremy, and Chris Walker, and Dr. Ray, and other people on the mic. So we're going to have a good old time chatting about slot car stuff. I have a show and tell to show, but we'll start with show and tell. Does anybody else want to show me up with their show and tell first? You can wave your hand and I'll try to catch it, or you can raise your electronic hand and I'll refer to that. I see Petrucci has his electronic hand up, so we'll start with him, and then we'll get to Mike, who's got his electronic hand up. Go ahead and, Petrucci, go ahead and unmute yourself and get to talking.
Evening.
Evening.
I'm having trouble with the printer again.
Okay.
Now look, that was the first one that went wrong. Then that's the second one that went wrong.
Okay, well, you got new filament there.
And this is another one that went wrong. And this morning, I printed this one. This stuck to the bed. And for some reason, it stopped. And when it started again, this happened.
Yep. Did it have that same problem with saying the filament ran out?
No, the filament was there. It's just that for some reason, because it goes up and down, it's gone off of balance. Yeah. And because I wasn't here, I was downstairs having breakfast. When I come up,
well, I'll tell you what, that is unfortunate, but there are so many things that could go wrong that it's not. We can't have that discussion on today's on during the recording. We can talk about it maybe afterwards, but you know, your best bet, honestly, is to find a forum or a Facebook group or whatever your preferred method of community is for your specific printer. Or at least Delta style printers, which is what kind of printer yours is. Yeah. And just say, I have such and such a printer, it keeps doing this, share pictures and ask for help. Because honestly, you know, we could go down a list of all kinds of things it could be, but
has anybody printed that successfully? Like have any of your friends shared it and printed it yet? I mean, I would look at the file or send it to me or Greg and see if we can print it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be down to problems with the file itself, or the slicer settings, or you know, maybe the like we talked about last time. It could be, you know, the memory.
To be quite honest with you, I think I set up the printer wrong.
Could be that. I mean,
that's my opinion.
There's so many things.
I'll be going through it all, but I'll get over it.
You'll get over it, and you'll figure it out one of these days. But yeah, go. You know, find a community that talks about your printer and say, hey guys, I have this printer. Can you help me? And they'll probably be, you know, we could do general help and talk for 2 hours about general troubleshooting for your printer. Yeah. But the guys who know your printer will be able to say, yeah, I had that exact same problem and it was this, and it might be the exact same thing for you to fix it. So that would be my first suggestion is do that.
That's good. Okay.
Anything else for today, Petrucci?
No, that's it for the moment. Yeah.
Alrighty,
but still, Petrucci, good for you for using your printer. Well done, sir.
Yeah, don't give up. Absolutely.
Oh, no, I'm not going to give up.
Yeah, and
I
good.
might buy Ender Free, which it's on the site, and the people who are using Ender Free are getting no problems at all.
Yeah, you'll get
I give the Ender Free to my nephew, and I kept this one and the Ford.
So you'll definitely find a lot more help for Ender 3s in the slot car printing community. There's you know.
What's going here?
Anyways, we will move on to Mr. Mike. What you got today, Mike? I asked to unmute you because you're still muted. There you go.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yep, it's good to go.
Only
and you have a bad connection.
Everybody's frozen.
He's frozen.
Yeah, you might have to turn your video off and maybe just do voice.
I'm going to go on.
No.
We'll see.
Well, for us, you're the only one frozen, Mike.
Yep.
Oh,
That's connection.
There you go.
Hey.
Oh, almost. He's back. He's back.
All
No,
right.
he's not. No.
No, no, no.
All right. We'll come back to Mike. Go ahead and maybe reconnect Mike, and we'll come back to you. Neil, you are next on my screen. Go for it, Neil.
Hello, hello. So I got,
Congratulations, Neil.
and yes, and here it is.
You won my car.
I did win your car, yes. Nice.
That's the MR slot car one.
Yeah. Do you have any plans for what livery you're going to do, or what kind of paint job you're going to do?
No, I'm gonna have to do some research because I have not a clue, and I don't want to just willy-nilly pick up something because it never comes out right. So I will find something to base it on. And this is my first 911, and this is my first car that has a motor pod. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. You're getting lots of firsts with that car.
Yeah. And I have this little bag full of parts.
I'm sure there's an online instruction guide of some sort, or maybe just follow somebody else's build guide and pictures and stuff like that. Do you know of a good one, Dennis or Chris?
For the MR slot car, I'm not sure that there is one, but in general, the parts only fit in one place.
Yeah.
Every single
This is
part only
true.
fits in one spot.
I'm sure I could figure it out, what is what.
I'll see if I can find something. I don't know. Chris might know.
I think you're going to have to do it by yourself because I'm almost positive there's no instruction sheet on that from Ernie.
Well, that's okay. I'm used to doing everything by myself,
Yeah.
so that's not a problem. I also have a second thing here. Ooh, there we go. Look at this.
What is that?
I don't know. I have to figure out how
That
to
is a semi-pneumatic vehicle tire concentricity insurer reciprocating drive mechanism. Sorry.
for you to say.
So you got your reciprocator installed there. You mentioned you had a question earlier. What's going on?
I do have a question. I'm not sure what these little round things are for.
Those are extra pulleys
Go, Nick.
in case the
Is that all they are for the?
Out of the axle.
because my tire raiser, I didn't find out until I tested the reciprocator on my friend's tire raiser, but the pulley that I got with my tire raiser, which was one of the very earliest tire raisers, is almost as big as a wheel. So when I do truing, if the wheel is small enough, if the wheel and tire combination is small enough, the pulley and the rubber band will hit the sanding surface.
Oh, okay.
So I made smaller pulleys if other people are in the same situation, and they need, to have a smaller pulley. But I noticed on my friend's that his pulley was significantly smaller than the one that I had, so it wasn't really an issue for him. So yours is probably the same way. You already have a small enough pulley.
Yeah, I assumed that's what they were. I was just surprised that you said some extras, so that's great. And the other thing is this little thing.
It's a bottle opener. It's one of my racing themed 3D printed penny bottle openers.
Well, just to let you know, I used it.
Awesome.
That looks like a bug-eyed Sprite. It does. It looks like a Sprite.
I actually thought about redesigning one into more of a car shape, but I didn't start on that project. So did we lose Neil? I think he might have disconnected himself.
Yeah, that video's gone. Yep.
All right. Well,
Yeah. Well, listen. the reason he won was because he wasn't here before. So why should he stick around?
Yeah, exactly.
He already got his prize.
Yeah.
I think Mike took him out.
Maybe, yeah. Well, hopefully, well, their Mike is back. Mike, did you want to do your show? You want to try your show and tell again? Again, you're muted, so I'll ask you to unmute. You'll have to click the unmute button.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay, am I on now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Ferrari 333 Revo slot. And continuing my Yeller theme.
Oh, the Porsche 911, is that the Revo?
Yeah, 911 GT1. Gorgeous
So I have
cars.
a fellow.
Absolutely gorgeous.
I have a fellow yellow race car lover, Mike.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then just for Greg.
Yay, blue coral. I was gonna suggest I was gonna suggest to Neil that he get some blue coral decals for his Porsche.
Yeah. Absolutely gorgeous. And of course they go like Revo slots, which is on my track, not at all. But I'm going to start another class for the guys here. And we're going to run the Revo slots. And hopefully that will work out.
Yeah, it's
But
all about the tire.
a lot of work ahead for me.
I'm sure you'll get there sooner or later. Maybe silicone tires are the way to go. Maybe they'll give you the traction that you like.
There
Already
are
got them.
aftermarket or Revo Slot themselves make 2 grades of softer tire than the stock tire. There's a 22 Shore and a 15 Shore. I haven't tried them. I know that they're available. But I guess maybe Mike's deal is he should just put a magnet in the thing.
I mean, they come with a magnet under the base. You can stick one.
You can just stick it in. You stick it in at an angle.
We'll
angle
see.
between.
I still don't try to put so much that it's, that it's prohibitive. But at this point right now, they're like tail wagging all over the place.
Even with the magnet in.
Even with the magnet in, the height is so high. I actually ordered some NSR spacers, axle spacers that I'm going to use to space out the pillow blocks for the bearings to lower the chassis enough, because it's almost 2 millimeters of height on the chassis on these things, on all of them. So it's really, really high.
You could probably try some of there are some of those thin Professor motor magnets that you could possibly attach underneath. That would give you the same thing.
Yeah.
I've done that before.
I've also thought of using double-sided tape.
Yeah. I've also thought of. Go ahead.
You're going to have to get longer screws, I believe, too, if you put spacers underneath those uprights.
Yeah. I think I can get them from 132 slot. They have them in a bunch with BRM stuff. They have a screw package with them, and I think there's some in there. So I'm going to see what happens.
All right, thanks for sharing that, Mike. And Neil, did you have anything else you wanted to ask or talk about before you got cut off?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I went out of the meeting and came back because everything froze up. But nope, I think that was it.
Okay. All righty, and so we will move on to Graham Bowden, or Bowden. I'll let you correct me, and then get going on your show and tell.
Greg, can you hear me okay? Because I'm downstairs with the volume right down. I don't know if you can hear me cool. Nothing terribly exciting this week. First chance I've had to really come on properly. I'm just going to go on screen share if that's okay.
Yep, should be good.
Let's see what I can find. Let's start off with this picture. Right, Greg, I don't think you was here on the week when I think John was hosting that time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, half my picture disappeared too. Hang on.
Well, I see you got a straightaway is what we're looking at for your routed track.
Yeah, now what's happened there? For some reason, I can't see it.
You probably switched back to Zoom, so you might have to toggle your screen to.
Let's have a little look. I've got no idea what's going on here. Try that again. Please move this window away. I don't know what's. I don't.
Can you do the old Alt Tab trick to switch windows?
Control Alt.
No, Alt Tab.
Hold Alt, tab.
Hold Alt and then hit Tab in it. You should be able to switch your windows.
I know you can't see it, Graham, but it's a lovely photo.
Yeah, it's a good looking start on that straightaway.
All I can see is all the pictures I didn't want to see you, and that's all that's coming up on my screen.
Maybe stop the share and start again.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There we go. Right, now everything's gone to a file that I can't see which one I'm supposed to be looking at. Greg, can I leave off with this and we'll come back to
you? Yeah, we'll come back to you. What do you got to do?
What have I got? Am I next? Okay.
All right, let me spotlight you. Spotlight. Who's at the NSR?
That is the Polycar monoposto, as they call them. I just took the orange one that they did with the Surtees and beta livery. Took all those decals off, used the Atalaya decals to make the Daniel Ricciardo Monza car.
Very pretty.
Seeing as Danny Rick won something for McLaren for a change, so I thought I'd do that one. So that came out pretty well, as they always do.
How do the poly cars run compared to the NSR F1s?
They're slower because they don't have the same amount of motor.
I realize they're not the same. They're not the same class of F1, are they?
Completely different.
Yeah.
This is the new slotted Nissan GTR GT3. Full sidewinder. Very nice looking car. Similar problem on this one to what happened with the Revo slot Mercedes, that the front wheels don't really fit don't really fill the wheel arches very well.
Did you already flip the screws around?
Yeah, I'm still trying to work that one out. The problem is that the body sits on top of the chassis.
Oh.
So you can't lower the body relative to the chassis very much at all. But it looks like a nice car. It runs very nice, smooth and quiet. And then this is a Black Arrow Aston Martin DBR. The original issue of these were all inlines. The latest issue is an angle winder, so that's why I've been building this one up to try. I haven't run it yet. They also have gone down on their motors from the original 28,000 RPM things to 22,000, which makes the car much more drivable on a short circuit.
They've also got some tiny front wheels there.
Oh yeah, they love their little front wheels. This is the real what Bob Schleicher at Model Car Racing always calls the Euro racers, and their tiny front wheels. But other than that, it looks pretty good, and it should go like the Clappers.
Yeah.
Very, very high quality parts. The gear, the way in which the gears are done, the wheels, the chassis moldings and so on are really, really good. That's me for now.
Well, you got
Dennis, does that come with the standard suspension? Has it got red springs in it, built in and everything?
It's got springs in, Graham. They're blue springs that I can see. But it does come with a pack. It does come with a pack of springs, and there's 5 springs, right? Because there's 4 springs and then 1 in the middle up front, and I think it's 4 blues and 1 white. But it does come with a pack of alternate springs, and I haven't tried those yet.
Okay. Where did you buy it from, Dennis?
I got that off of Electric Dreams here in the US.
Dreams.
Yeah.
Because Pendo ain't got them in stock at the moment.
There's not too many of them around, I don't think. But,
no.
There are still some at Electric Dreams.
You're only going to find 3 suppliers in the UK, or to the UK for Black Arrow. One is order it directly off the Black Arrow website. I've done stuff like that before, comes straight to you. Comes from Spain, no problem. The other one is Slot Car Union in France. And the other is Evo Tech Shop, which I believe is in Germany. all three stock all the stuff you need for Black Arrow, and they'll ship to the UK, no problem.
The other one, I found a shop in Holland at one stage. I don't remember its name offhand, but I found a shop in Holland that where I got my first one.
I think Ali slots? I think they got them in stock.
Well, you got 3 shops to look for. Alan just recommended 3 shops for you there.
Yeah. I know. I'm gonna have a look around because I bought one off of Pendon and they haven't got them anymore. They got parts but no car. But,
Thanks for pointing Petrucci in the right direction there, Alan.
thanks, Alan.
Looks like Graham. Do you want to give it another try?
Yep, we'll try and give it another go. Right, let's have a little look. It's still come out with it all bizarre. It's got a whole load of folders here, and I didn't want to flick up screen share in case it.
Sure.
Show tell folder. Right, we're back. Here we go. Right.
This may work, it may not.
Yeah, we're looking at your folder.
And the folder. That's not good, is it?
You shared the folder instead of sharing the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have to open the picture first and then share, and then.
Right. Okay. Let's click off stop share. Right, and
there's another share option, Graham, which is share screen, which actually shares whatever you're looking at.
Right. There we go. Right. Is that better?
Yes.
Hey, we're back. We're back.
Right. Okay. Right. This is the main straight now. I've put in me 4 slots. Everything went fine, no hiccups, didn't trip and send the router guide off in a random direction, so that's all good. There's not really a lot to show you, so I'll just quickly flick through it. That's just from the other end, obviously dust and rubbish everywhere. It's the same old picture. I've run out of materials, and rather than go out and buy anything, as I was saying to John and everyone a few weeks ago, I've literally just thought, right, what have I got laying about? So there's some old wood there. My planer broke while I was trying to clean it up. So it's really rough old timber. I'll show you here. I don't know if anyone can see that clearly. That's a nice 400-volt starter capacitor, motor starter, and that dripped all over my fingers. Believe me, I had blisters.
Wow.
Yeah, but anyway, that was one of the fun bits with doing this. So I'm basically trying to source materials, basically, recycled everything else. So I'm not spending any money and obviously using what I've got. Let's quickly tab through to the other ones. Yeah, I've now got the, I don't know if you remember the diagram from the other week, that's the hairpin now in. And the lower part of the picture, that's 2 S's that will go in there. Click to here. I think that's pretty much me, folks. I'll leave it there. So the track build goes on and we carry on.
It's looking, Graham, it's looking great.
Are you taping this, Graham, or are you going to braid it?
Oh, it is braided, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep, we spent a lot of money on that. So I'm hoping it's all going to go okay.
Well worth it.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah.
Good stuff. Look forward to seeing the progress on that.
Okay.
All right, Don, you are next on my screen. What do you got to share for us today, Don? You're still muted.
Okay. What I have to show. Is a couple of projects that I'm working on. And the one on the screen's left is the one that I talked to John about, doing a blue color on it. I finally found one that I liked.
That is a nice blue. What's the model?
The Lola Aston Martin.
From Slide?
Yes. And then this one is the Sideways Ford GT, and I'm not happy with the way the paint job came out on it, but since I'm just going to bust it up anyway, who cares?
Throw some numbers on it, call it good.
Yeah, that's about the size of it. So
the paint jobs both look very good from a few thousand miles away.
Yeah,
they
Well,
do.
when they're running, you're not going to be able to see the imperfections anyway. So.
exactly. 5-foot rule.
That blue looks really
But
cool.
Yeah, is it like a glitter or like
It's a metallic, right?
yes, it's a metallic.
And was it a modeling color or was it a full-size car color that you got hold of?
It's actually a full-size
Uh-huh.
car paint. Here where I live, there's no modeling hobby shop, anything, but there's 500 car dealers.
There's probably plenty of cars.
Store.
Yep.
So I can get all kinds of that kind of paint, but
Yeah.
I can't get what I really want to get. But
Although, you
this
know,
one actually turned
automotive,
out pretty nice.
Yeah, it looks really good.
look, I was going to say, Don, automotive paint does a great job.
It does actually, and then if you put a clear over the top of it, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, well, this one is clear coated.
That's probably why it looks so good on camera.
Mm-hmm.
But those are my projects for the moment. As far as Wayne's request, when I get my track to a point I want somebody to look at it, I'll show pictures of it.
Well, we look forward to that for sure. Awesome. Thanks for sharing those, Don. Of course, we want to see, once you get more stuff going on for those. Does anybody else have any show and tell, or should I go ahead and show my tell?
I have one, Greg.
Okay, go ahead, Wayne.
Mine is an ongoing project that's a couple of the members of the group already know about.
Yep, SCX DTM.
No, not this time. What am I sharing?
Yeah, you're sharing a bit meter, so apparently
Bit meter at the moment. Beautiful.
I don't know why the bit meter's there. Am I sharing?
Wheels.
Yeah, wheels.
Good. Okay, so I've entered an upcoming Disca endurance race, only a 3-hour one, and the category is GT4, which is a different rule set to the ones that we regularly race under. Alan and people like that race under. But there's a control tyre for this event, which is slotted PT35, which is a 9.5mm wide, 20 diameter tyre. And the regulations stipulate that the minimum wheel diameter we can use is a 17mm. So I immediately went to the market to try and find a suitable wheel. And nobody seems to make an air system wheel that's at 16.9 diameter like this one is. So I went to the box and had a look, see what I could get from my box. In the meantime, I talked to my 3D printer friend and asked him to adapt one of his chassis. He produces these SFX, he calls them, flexed style chassis for a whole range of cars. He's done all the Scale Electric BTCC range, and obviously they're intended to house a slotted pod. Now, the rules dictate in this case that we must run an inline motor configuration with 0 offset. And if we have a podded car, then it has to have its screws tight. So there's a couple of peculiar regulations that dictate the way the car's going to shape up. But I asked him to produce a chassis for a Scale Electric AMG Mercedes, which this is the beginning. This is part of the conversation about, can you put some of these little body support moldings in so that I can stick some grub screws through like this car's got? And can he pop some controls for the rotation? You can see, you saw this part, this is near the front, and this is the part with the motor pod. Now, because I can't have loose screws in the motor pod, I thought I'd get some rotation, twist rotation going with one of his flexible chassis, but I wanted to be able to limit the amount of motion or lock it up if necessary. And so I wanted some holes in that, and a little wing that's above there, and stick some grub screws up through the holes and screw them in to limit the motion. By the way, if anybody sees anything they want to ask a question about, don't wait till the end, just fire away. So I got my wheels out and I got some tires I got in my box. They weren't the correct ones, and I started to throw tires at wheels to see what kinds of profiles I would probably end up with. This is a 20 by 10 tire I used. It's actually a slotted Z0 front tire, which is quite firm. And I didn't expect the PT35 to be particularly soft. The PT35, by the way, is a C1 compound tire. And as we know, C1 compound tires are what you get when you buy a brand new slotted car. So I did ask a few friends if they got any stock slotted cars and whether or not they were likely to carry this PT35 tire on, and whether or not they got any wheels that might suit this task, because my experience and my quantity of wheels is limited. However, I did find on the market a 16.9 diameter staff's slot car right wheel, which is these red ones. And these over here are NSR 17.3 air system wheels. So this is that same Z0 tire. I'm throwing it at different wheels to see what profiles I get, whether the air system wheel is empty or whether it's got a foam insert in, things like that. So as we saw from the previous picture, the best fit was the red wheels, 16.9 on this tire, the wrong tire, but I'm trying to get ahead of the game. So why is that picture next? Oh yes, this is the first prototype chassis that was printed for AMG Mercedes. This was sent to me by the guy who's doing the design.
I'm still looking at wheels.
Oh, are we?
Yep.
I'm sorry about that. I thought you were following my screen. I've stopped my share. I'll share again, and you should see the back of the car.
Yep.
Okie dokie. Let's hope it keeps up. So yeah, there's the beginnings of a 3D print that doesn't actually fit very well, but it's the first shot. It's the first to go. And we were discussing tidying that area up. I can't remember why I took that picture, so I'll just skip it. Yeah, just detail photographs of the wheels. I've been told that these wheels look a lot like CB design wheels. Don't actually know where you get those from in the UK, but these are staff slot car right. Ignore that, ignore that. So we're just going through. Obviously, that's an important picture, isn't it, with regard to how wheels are specified. And some of the wheels that I've had in my hand, I've got these specifications. This is a screen grab from Pendle Slot Racing. And in particular, the D diameter, where the tire bead sits, isn't always the same diameter as the specifications that the manufacturers give, I've discovered.
Manufacturers don't, when slotted says it's a 15/8, that's measured from the top of the rib to the bottom of the rib.
Yes, that's right. I realize the nomenclature is usually the top of the center rib.
Right.
And therefore, the diameter at the bead seat can change quite a lot between different manufacturers.
Yep.
So, and I'll probably go into that a little bit more in later pictures. This is the result, the finished chassis, and it's with this photograph, it went commercially available.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
I can. You will see more detail of it. I can, honest I can. I could earlier. That's probably, there we go. There we go. So it's got my little wings on it, look.
Yep.
And it's got my little grub screw posts for supporting the body shell. It's fine to support it on here, here, and here. But I find that if you loosen this one any significant amount, then it starts to rock quite a lot. It just tips over the outside wheel and can touch the wheel, can touch the tire with the wheel arch. So I wanted to support it here and here. And in the OEM body shell, there is actually a couple of bits of plastic that do sit on the OEM chassis. But because we're not using the OEM chassis, I need an alternative. So I now need to get out and zoom. There we go. That gets me my arrow back. And that's the same thing from the other side. This is basically the advertisement that went onto Facebook Marketplace. these are some screen grabs of the conversation. Oh, another thing I wanted to do, and I noticed it done in this chassis, which is also for an AMG, produced by the guy Oliver in Italy. They've moved the guide as far forward as feasibly possible underneath the body shell, to the extent that they've actually lost part of the front splitter to do so. I wanted to push that guide lead forward. This is another screen grab I got from a slotted chassis, which is on Shapeways for the same car. And I was just sharing these with Paul at World Slot Racing, who made that print. So I think I've now got a PT35 tire, and I think that's it installed on a stock scale electric wheel. Now there's two classes running at this event, and I've entered 2 teams because I've got enough drivers around me to do so. Two-man teams. And this is the PT35 tire on a stock scale electric wheel. Now, one of the classes can use aftermarket wheels. That's what we've been looking at. And the other class has to use OEM throughout. The only thing you can change is the pinion gear. And that's because the handout motor will more than likely not have a spline like the scale electric one does. So the scale electric pinion will likely slip on the handout motor when we get it. And I think that they're allowing any pinion so that you can fit a tighter fitting pinion. So here we are. There's some, the numbers surrounding these wheels, the OEM AMG back wheels, are quite peculiar, and that's the result for the concave tread area. And you'll see what we've ended up doing about it. Now, I took these shots when I took delivery of, well, I went and fetched, because I was getting desperate to get on with something, some of the chassis. And this was the one you saw, the test print you saw in the first place. It was a fail as far as he was concerned, so he just binned it and I pulled it out the bin. This was another one that failed insofar as it flexed too much in this frontal area. You could actually bend it really, really easily. And this is the one I've built, or I've been building, and it's got an additional web in that area there to stiffen it up in longitudinal flex. And he gave me some motor pods. And you will see very soon a special motor pod that I asked him to make. These were fails in the attempt to make the motor pod I asked him to, which is special, and you'll see why in a minute. And that specialness is obvious here. I asked him to cut a chamfer on the underside of the motor pod so that I could angle the motor and still maintain a 0 offset with the rear axle. And by angling the motor, what I mean is taking the motor and making it not run parallel to the bottom of the chassis like a normal 0 offset motor would, but actually have a nose that's the front here that's lower than the back. And so this has been printed on supports, and this is how it looks when you pop one into the chassis. How do I get out of me soon? There, do that, do that, do that. There, next picture. Paul also has an oxygen chip, a Type C. This is the first time I've had a Type C in my hand. And as you can see, it's mounted on a Shapeways slotted DPR hatch. And that's going to be perfect for the amateur class car, which is going to run the OEM chassis. So the 3D print is the pro class car, and the amateur class car is all original parts, including chassis. So I'm taking a photograph of it just so that I can remember what wires go to the motor, what wires must therefore go to the guide, and what the Hall sensor's like, and all the location of all the relevant pads, etc. Paul also gave me this chassis. This was a parts car. It donated its blue body shell for the design of the 3D print. And this is what he gave me. It's got no front lights. It's got a set of rear lights I can probably use. And obviously I can use the base plate. I can use the guide. I need to find some axles, etc., etc. Some more bits and bobs. Paul likes to use scale auto guides. These are the first ones I've ever had experience of. I'm going to build the Pro car with the scale auto guide. There's a few nylon bushes for scale electric. There's a few hold downs that hold them into his motor pod. And here's a couple of axles that we can use. And this is just, those were just pictures of what he gave me. Now, this body's had a hard life. I'm not sure what the history of the car is, but the wing obviously got broken off quite early. And it's been an attempted repair with super glue, which sits here and across the windscreen in a pool and all sorts of things. But it'll do. It passes the 5-foot rule. It needs fixing up.
Why would you use super glue, Wayne?
I've no idea. I think someone just had it in their box and needed to fix it up quick. So they did what they did. It's not my car, like I said. Don't know its history. I don't know how it came to be like this. I haven't been successful in doing much with it, but the wing was glued absolutely solid into this. I could not pull this stub out. And as you can see, this was completely blocked too. So it's been quite a challenge to sort this out.
I'll say.
So there they are, out of the packet, PT35, 20 by 9.5, C1 compound. And now, again, just for the sake of knowledge and making a record, I start measuring things. And this is a complete motor pod with its top caps on. And this piece sits, you'll probably notice that there's no slot in the top of this. There's no aperture to pop a motor in vertically. So what you have to do is feed it in pinion end first, offer this cap over the bearing at the front, and lower the thing in, and then pop a couple of screws in the underside of here. So this weighs 6 grams, and the chassis with its front axle and guide holder, which has been adapted to give me more space in this area for the C-chip. Usually that would print pretty much straight across there. And he's done this to make space for me. Weighs about 14.5. So we're up to about 20 grams just over for the chassis on its own. And when you compare that to a stock chassis, you'll see that there's a significant difference. What I've got of the body shell weighs about 22 grams, and there's a regulation that says that the body shell must weigh 25 grams. So we're going to have to put some weight into the body shell. We are allowed to run Alexa.
Wayne, sorry to interrupt. Does that weight of the body include the rear wing that isn't there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. The wing, I think, is about 1.8-ish on its own. Not a heck of a lot. So I look at a stock rear axle, 7.43 grams. Don't know whether that's impressive or not. And then I look at the weight of a wheel. This is the solid alloy Staff's wheel at 1.4 grams. This is the NSR wheel with a small insert in it, with by insert, I mean a decorative insert, no foam, just over 1 gram. There's quite a difference there. 1.2 grams with a foam insert in it. And then there's a complete rear axle. Well, what I considered at the time to be a complete rear axle, but it's actually missing one part. It really should have another axle stopper like that for this side. And it's 11 grams. Now, if you remember the first one we looked at, complete rear axle, was 7 and a bit. So although there's a lot more accuracy in these gears, it's still got the nylon scale electric bushes.
It's got the brass boss on that gear, though. You could switch to the light aluminum ones.
Yes, you could switch to the light aluminum one, but I've got this one in my box. I've never used it. It's actually a 24 tooth, and there's another regulation that comes into play here. The final ratio on the whole car must be 3:1. And I have got an 8-tooth pinion. So I'm thinking, I know, I can damn well use that gear I've never used and put an 8-tooth pinion with it. It'll give me a lower rotating mass. This will be a smaller diameter. All the gears I've got one with an aluminium boss. I used to have two, but I made that mistake of building it in standard form and ended up turning all this area into black powder on the first aluminium boss one I used, and then I learned to use axle stoppers.
If you're not going to use the slot in the crown to control the motor shaft,
you're getting that, yeah.
Just
go ahead.
Put your gear on an old axle and get a Dremel with a Dremel grinding bit and grind most of that brass boss off.
Thanks very much. Good advice. I'm going to take that advice. You'll see in a moment.
Or spend like $5 and buy an aluminum boss gear.
yeah. It's not $5 though, is it? It's plus shipping, and it's like oh geez. So here's my PT35 tire on that NSR wheel, which is my favorite wheel from my experience, which is limited. Without an insert here and with that insert here, which is much better shape, but it is actually convex. So I have to measure how big my insert is, and it's quite large. It's a lot larger than the 17.3 of the rim. So I get those and spin those up and I braid them down, and I get them down to about 17.4, and then they start to fit properly. Meanwhile, the PT35 makes its way onto the staff's wheels. This is a 10mm wide wheel, and as you can see, doesn't really fit it well at all. But the 8.5, which is essentially a front wheel, fits lovely. Nice flat tread area. Turns out to be 20.95mm, give or take, on that wheel. And on the other one, 21, a little bit bigger. Now, I said I would talk more about wheels and the bead seats. The diameter of the center section on this is 16.9, but the bead seat area, just there where my pointer is 14.7. And on this wheel, that area is also 14.7, but the ridges are taller, and that's what makes it a 17.3. And yeah, it was a significant lesson to learn that the tire walls were actually in the same place. Not sure why I shot that, but they weigh a gram with the screws. And there's the gear, nearly 3 grams, 2.9 grams. So I throw all that together. This is a video when it's going to play. If I'm not careful, I don't really need it to play. But I throw a motor, I throw a pinion. It's an 8-tooth plastic pinion that I've got. Don't know where I got it from, but I've had it for a long time. Throw the nylon bushers in, and I'm checking for the fit. Is there any misalignment, anything like that? And it actually fits really, really well. Those caps hold.
Wayne's gone.
Yeah, I think we might have lost Wayne.
Yep.
Yeah. Just waiting for him to disconnect at this point. Come in, Wayne. Wayne, can you hear us?
Wave your hands if you can hear me.
Yeah, no, he's gone.
He was doing so well.
He was.
He was. I heard him take a breath too at one stage.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
well.
All right, I'm going to stop the share, and we'll pick up where we left off on that one. Oh, it won't even, there we go. I'm like, it won't even let me stop this share. All right, so we'll pick up where we left off with Wayne once I finish my presentation, so I'll go ahead and get mine going.
Oh, and don't forget, DC put up his hand there.
Oh, I'm happy waiting. We're all good.
Are you okay?
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. We got all day, right?
We'll get back to DC.
I'm in no hurry.
Mine shouldn't take nearly as long as Wayne's was. Oh, hey, there's Wayne again. You want to continue, Wayne? You're muted.
He's muted now. Yeah.
Yeah. I left the meeting, did I?
It looks like you froze out, but you want to pick up from that red pod with all the gears and stuff in it?
Yeah, okie doke.
Just don't. This isn't the Gong Show. None of us did that to you.
No, it's okay. Thank you. It's nice to know.
I was
that
trying
you
to
weren't
find the
bored-
button now. I was
You
trying to
weren't
find
quite
it.
bored to tears yet. So I'm sending this picture. This is the next picture, and I was sending this back to Paul to show him that in fact what he's come up with. This has got this. The Scalextric chassis is underneath, and the hole for the guide on the Scalextric chassis is actually slightly in front of the one that he's produced. Yeah, I asked him to make it as long as he could, and I don't know why he didn't go a little further forward, but he didn't. So we've got one car that is marginally shorter. I can't actually tell you exactly how much.
Wayne,
but,
can you not open that up? I mean, it's a solid print, right?
there are. I don't really want to or need to. I don't want to spoil it. It is a solid print. It is potentially. It has got the potential to be, but it really just needed designing again and drawing again and you know, change that for future.
You just want the sort of mistake so you can make another car with it.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, this is a McLaren MP412C Scalextric chassis sat on top of an AMG chassis, and you can see here how much longer an MP412C is. And at my club, in Scalextric GT3 category, the MP412C reigns. The AMG comes second, and I don't really think there's anything else that's going to run at the front of the field.
But if the Mercedes body is a little bit shorter, you just can't arbitrarily pick a guide. You've got to fit it under the front of the body, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm just actually, this is the first time I've ever done this. I've got the stock Scalextric chassis. This is, you can see the DPR doors don't quite overlay. And there's the back of the MP412C is really, really close to the back wheels. And the front is way ahead of the front wheels. And just looking at the differences, I mean, although the chip is, when the chip's in, it's got its LED just as close in both cases, but the whole of the front of the MP4 is further forward. And this is just, you know,
like, I mean, if you look at the two chassis, the one on the top's much longer, therefore the body's longer. So you're not going to fit a really long chassis under a shorter body.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't really.
Well, this was the first time I got the two chassis together, and it was just the MP412C is in the teardown stage before I prep it and build it up for club racing, and I've put that aside to go along with these AMGs, and it was just for comparison sake. I sent this back and said, Paul, look at the bloody difference between these two chassis.
Compare that to an SCX Mini, and you'll really see a big difference. But I don't get the point.
Yeah.
Okay.
One car is longer. It's gonna have a.
So this, I think, is the answer to your point, Chris. I did what you suggested and took to that brass boss area. I even took some material out of here too. And I didn't want to go too far. I didn't want to lose it. You can see I've got another one, and this is all it's ever done. It's also brand new. But yeah, it's got a 2mm grub screw in, 2mm in length, whereas it normally has a 3. And I've taken a fair amount off of the periphery.
Yeah, you can take the face of that stopper down a lot as well if you want.
Oh, the left side of here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Left side and the right side.
Yeah, I could actually, yeah. My tool is in there with a hook to the right, so it doesn't necessarily make it easy to come from the right to the left unless I'm going the whole way across. But if I had another tip that with the opposite hand, I could probably do that. I haven't got one, so I did what I could. And remember that I'm up against it because there is a deadline for these cars, which is today. Because I said today, it's tomorrow actually, because on Friday I go away for a week holiday and the race is the 31st, which is the end of the week, end of that week. So I've managed to take that down from 2.9 to 2.2, which I'm happy with because it's got to be better. I am back on wheels again. This does move left. Remember that these photos, I took most of these photos for communication purposes, and a lot of them have featured in a messenger conversation I've been having with other team members and the designer of the car, etc. So I'm showing the PT35s on the NSR wheels without an insert here and with an insert over here. There you go. I was demonstrating how the inserts go, you know, what they are and how they're made and one thing and another. Oh, and then I got this thing. I got bogged down in thought processes, and this was in an attempt to get, I knew that the back of the chassis was going to be very, very high because of the zero offset, the diameter of the wheel, etc. So I wanted to know how much to tip up the front of my guide to get it level with the track again. So I got this dimension of 15 millimeters, which was the mountings for the two screws mounting the front axle to the chassis. But the front axle has also got the guide tongue on it. So I thought if I tip that with those where those two screws are, I'll be able to get the angles sorted. So I wanted to know over this distance, how much do I need to raise the front to get this angle? And I used this calculator to do it, shared it. And then I looked at how I would do it because the 15 millimeter along the bottom of the triangle is there. Now, this is a mounting screw. This is a mounting screw. The axle block, when it goes on, is keyed into these locations. And this is an adjuster screw for the axle height. You know, that's got your, well, further up than this, up here, that's got your 1 point, that's got your M2 grub screw in for the bottom of the axles. So it's basically quite difficult to put a washer underneath the front, let's say, for example, to tip it up. So I had to think again, and I decided I would look at the dimensions of a 24.5. Now this is from the back screw to the guide hole, essentially. And now I want a 2-degree angle because I want a little bit of tolerance for the guide slot that you have to have. So I've changed it to 2 degrees. I now know I've got to raise the front by 0.85 of a millimeter. How do you do that? So I magneted the chassis down onto my flattening plate and I popped a spacer underneath the guide. And then I put the back screw in, which is actually coming up. These posts here are normally, when he prints these front ends, and closer together than they are here. But because I've got to get the chip in, I asked him to push them apart as far as possible. So he pushed them out as wet to here, and that has left the threads of the self-tapping screw just visible. So I've got the back screws in, not tight, obviously, because that would pull it down hard. And I'm shimming up this area to attack it with the bottle of glue and basically glue it into place, because I'm not convinced that these screws, Paul said the same, I'm not convinced that these screws are going to hold it very, very well. So now it's time to get the guide, get the shims, and work out a height for my guide, see whether it's actually sat flat, see whether it's motorboating or whether it's submarining or whatever the angles might be referred to as. And here we are. I've chosen some shims and I've built my preferred method of tightening the cap down, which is actually not to turn the nut, but to screw the M2 threaded screw down into the guide. That screw, I think it's about an M2 by 10 or might be 8, but it goes all the way down inside the guide. And you can do this in less than 1/6 of a turn increments, and you can get that. You can get almost completely rid of the wobble. And Paul does a really good job of printing that. That's a really good fit for this guide. That's why it's his preferred guide, I believe. Then we had a birthday party. Forgive these photos. Back to the chip. I know it's a bit scatterbrained, but I'm, like I say, I'm back and forth between a pro car and an amateur car and this and that and the other. So I stripped the wires off of Paul's chip and I weigh the chip so that I know what I'm dealing with. This is the top mount. This is the chip in location, and I've put this red box on there just because that's a reminder for me to remember exactly where the infrared LED is on the underside. It's here at the front in the middle of the red box, and as you can see, it's tight. There's a tiny gap here, but it fits, and it just fits over there. And I've got to locate it to the right side of the car because the LED isn't in the center. This, at this point in time, this is the Hall sensor. It's poking out in forwards, and it's like, how the hell am I going to get this and locate it somewhere in the car where it will ride over the magnets in the track to count laps? And I'm like, really at my wit's end trying to think about what to do with it. But it's obviously poking forward. It's underneath the axle at this stage. This I shot to remind myself where I've located the double-sided foam pads I've used. This is a black one and it's thick. This is a white one and it's thin. And because it's on this Kapton protector, it needed to be thinner here than over there so that they sat level. And here was the solution that I came up with for the Hall sensor. I noticed I've got that little space at the side of the chip. And so I did a gentle curl, as gentle as I could around a screwdriver handle, trying not to kink this conductor, and fed it back underneath. And I've used some Evo stick type glue to glue the Hall sensor down just here. And another bit just there so that it can't bend up and touch the axle. Next one. So now we've got to this position, and I have a question. Does anybody recognize these pinions I've got?
No.
It's pink in color, and if I'm not mistaken, it might very well be manufactured by Scale Electric.
From their sport.
So it's bound to be old.
Yeah, they marketed some upgrade parts under Scale Electric Sport for a few years.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
I'm going to guess that's what it is.
Is it possibly an old Ninco?
I'm not absolutely certain. My
Don't remember Ninco ever having pink
likely
ones.
to be a Scale Electric.
Or black.
Yeah, black or red for Ninco. But yeah, you don't know where you got it, but you got it.
That's right. Job lot. I think I might have got it in a job lot. Or I've got a range of them. They're all brand new. Is it an inline pinion or is it a sidewinder pinion?
No such thing.
Yeah,
they're all the same, are they?
Yeah, there's anyone who tells you it's a special sidewinder, they're all diameter and tooth count that's
okay.
For years.
It made Scale Electric
invest a pound and get a real pinion though.
They made 8 through 12 on those pinions, on their sport pinions. It's on Professor Motor's site.
Okay, so this is a plain shaft motor, and that's the reason I got this. It's a double-ended plain shaft motor, and I got this motor out because that more reliably reflects the motor we're going to get given as handout. I did bring this motor to the post-chat a week ago, and people actually recognized it. I don't know where it was from, what it is exactly. All I know is they're not up to much. In my opinion, they're not even as good as a standard Scale Electric motor, and they do get very hot. I recall. No magnet.
Oh, no magnet now. Yeah, Professor Motor was selling that as he called them hot rod motors, and he was selling bags of 20 of them for $10.
Okay. Interesting to know its history. It's I end up switching it out. But back to the pinion briefly. This mesh doesn't. It's just tight. I've got one stopper on the car at this time, and it's over here. There is a shim behind it so that it's not running directly against the bush. There isn't a stopper over there. And I've loosened the mesh, and I've had it so loose that there's a side float in the rear axle that I don't want. And I cannot get that to mesh nicely at all. It just feels tight. I never even ran it.
Wayne, maybe the pitches don't match.
I have no idea. That's why I asked about the origins of the pinion. However, a white Scalextric meshes lovely with that slotted gear. That one, appalling.
Yeah,
Really,
How many teeth are on it?
Yeah.
That's an 8.
Yeah.
But I've got them all, I think 8 through to 13.
Yeah, that's a 5.5 mil 8-tooth pinion you've got on there. If you wanted to do yourself a favor, go out and cut your next door neighbor's lawn for £1 and go buy a real pinion.
I'd want more than £1.
Yeah. The advice is sound, though. The advice is sound. I have doubts, Wayne, that this is the right approach. I mean, I know it's a bit late in the day, but the pitch on an 8-tooth pinion against the pitch on a regular crown like that isn't going to be great. You're not going to be trying to run more than 2 hours with this thing, are you?
Yes.
Oh, you're really, this is not going to work. Get yourself a proper pinion. I know that you've bought into this, using this smaller crown, but the 927, they are perfectly pitch matched. And
Okay.
just go and buy the aluminium one. I've got a 9-tooth. Actually, a steel 9-tooth all slot. You can get it cheap as chips from Pendle now because they've got bagfuls of them they want to get rid of.
Yes, I bought some too on spec. I can't
Hold on. Do we have to do a whip round for Wayne here for a proper gear set?
Don't worry. I'm at the early stages of the build. Not the early stages. I'm getting somewhere. So at this stage, I'm interested to find out what we're at. Now, again, back to the regulations. The body shell has to be 25 grams. The minimum weight for the whole car is 75 grams. So this piece should be 50, but it's not, and it isn't even finished. So I'm getting nervous about how heavy this car is going to come in. A little bit nervous, not too nervous. Can't remember why I shot this one. I'm going to skip it. This shows the motor pod as it sits in the chassis initially, first build. You can see there's a heck of a lot of rake angle in the chassis at this time. The motor is hanging lower than the chassis, intentionally so, and at this angle with a 0 offset. And this is the starting point for some experiments with shimming in here and underneath the similar screw at the back.
Wayne, is the 0 offset mandated by the rules?
Yes, it is.
Oh, good grief. So you're at a 3-to-1 ratio with a 0 offset using a digital chip. These cars are not going to be quick, are they? What is the motor you're going to be given? Do you know?
It's going to be a handout 20K plain double. Well, it doesn't say plain, but double shafted. And I'm going to guess that they're not going to be providing them with splines.
And maybe they got a whole bag of them for $20.
I don't know. And that's what it looks like when the body shell sits on it at this time. And as you can see, the rake is very prevalent and the wheel arch gap is huge. So let's address that. And now I release the screws at the back. And if you look through the wheel here, you can actually see I've got a stack of 4 1mm spacers in there. I've got nothing in there at the moment. We're on the deck, but that's a first shot. And that's just a different picture that shows the same thing, but you can't see the spacers. And there they are. And of course, at this point, the angles of the holes that go up through the pod are all wrong for the heads that are coming out the bottom of the chassis. So I've got to minimize this angle severely. Otherwise, when I tighten these screws down, it's actually going to bend the car. Just another picture of it from underneath. And this is where I got to with a couple of iterations of combinations of shims and washers. And we're down to like...
open up those pod holes in the lugs in the pod.
Yeah.
Just use machine screws with nylock nuts.
Nuts on top. because you know I've got the nylock nuts.
If you do that, you don't have to play silly bugger with cutting different angles in your motor pod holes and all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And the added bonus is with the nylock nuts, it's easy to set in small increments, and you're not going to lose nuts.
Yes, that's right. This one is a blind hole, so I couldn't get a nut on top because there's the top cap in the way just here. But it does work out that if I put 2 millimeters here and 1 millimeter up front, which is out of focus, but you can make it out, it turns out to look, hopefully the next photo is what I expect. No, it turns out to look about right. And the motor's just below the chassis. Now you've seen that the chassis I was given had not got a light set at the front. So I went to my bits box and I found this, which is out of a Scalextric AMG Mercedes, probably 13 years ago, something like that. And I'm thinking, they look about the right distance apart. Let's see how they might fit. And obviously at this stage, I think this is approximately where they need to go in the body. And I'm working out a way to mount them because the chassis got none of those little flimsy mounts on it. But I've decided already that I'm going to notch the top of these axle blocks above the screw and drop the circuit board down in the notch and secure it with a little bit of glue. And how on earth am I going to get this board to sit just there when I haven't got the supports that are molded in the stock chassis?
Glue it into the body like half of the guys do with lights anyways?
Well, that's right. Well, the lights in the body issue. Anyway. I'm sorry, Dennis, what was that?
You needed more weight in the body anyway.
I did, and that was probably the best solution. Get the light kit into the body. The problem is that I didn't want to have another plug and socket to have to deal with, and the AM car, remember, is going to be running on the stock chassis, which has got the mounts on it, and I'm just going to leave it as it's simple because it's easy and it's fast. And I'm trying to build 2 cars in 2 weeks, and this is the one that's taking all my time and effort because it's not stock and it doesn't just screw together like a stock car does. So I light them up on a power track and discover that they're yellow, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's fine. Could I do this with them? I've still got front lights. I'm legal. They're not headlights, but do they go on the chassis any good? Just there? Probably not. This is just a picture of where they are as stock so I can reference what height the stock lights are at and this, that, and the other. Please ignore this tire. It's lost a lot of super glue. It's one that I trimmed down and I had to build it back up again. So I got some yogurt pot and I thought, yogurt pot, you can bend that forever, can't you? Well, I managed to get 2 little 5 millimeter wide strips or 3 millimeter wide, I can't remember what they are. And I just threw a load of glue. And as I tried to bend them to have little feet, I managed to do it on that side, on one of them, and on this side, they both broke off. And I was like, I'll throw some glue at it and see how it goes. Looks like there's a heck of a lot of it here, but you're looking at it really, really closely. And there's also a dab of glue on that body post there. And I'll be honest with you, I can pick the car up and swinging it around by its rear lights now. They're not coming off. You can also see that I've done that.
Is that epoxy that you use there?
No, that's Evo stick. The Evo stick, you would normally put a screwdriver in a tin of Evo stick and it would just dribble away. This is actually a gel. It's called Bison Tix. And
Bison Tix?
T-I-X.
Oh, okay.
Bison being the brand as opposed to Bostik, and Tix being the particular model of glue. It's called Bison Tix, and it's a gel form Evo stick or contact adhesive, the type you would put on both surfaces and allow it to dry and then bring them together and they're stuck.
Oh, which is like a rubber cement then?
Sort of.
Contact adhesive.
You can see now I've switched to a standard Scalextric pinion, which is the wrong tooth count. but it meshes and runs really nicely.
Again, I don't mean to belabor the point, but to Chris's earlier point, if you're running for a length of time, aren't you afraid of that nylon getting stripped or anything like that?
Actually, no, not at all. Nylon gears last 24 hours at least. They do, don't they, Alan?
No, they don't.
Really?
They might if they're perfectly matched and perfectly spread and perfectly lubricated, and you can get them somewhere like, you know, I mean, if you took someone like Tamar, the amount of work he's doing to make sure that those work is extraordinary. But you know, that's not what's happening here. I'm really kind of worried about your 8-tooth pinion.
Okay.
And your
I'll take your point. I'll take your point. I accept that the 927, if you're saying the mesh, the teeth are better mesh, better, you know, I'm going to run smoother and all the rest of that, I accept that. However, this does run an absolute load smoother than the stock gears in the Amcar, which is where the attention goes to next. Let's build a rear axle that fits those tires. So I'm truing this area, the bead seat, down from about 14.95 to 14.7, like the alloy wheels. Center section is 16.5 out the box, but then it's not true either. So you spin it and it comes down, true it, and it comes down to about 16.4. And it needs to be 17, maybe 16.9, maybe, to fill the tire. So I've got some 3mm wide masking tape, and I put a wrap of that around there just to see what happens, and you know, whether or not we've got a tire with a shape yet. Again, note taking and sharing, and that's what the stock wheel looked like, and that's what that wheel with the wrap of tape looked like, and it's a lot flatter. It's nearly acceptable, but again, the width of the tire doesn't fit the wheel all that well, but it is what it is. It's what we've got to run. As long as it doesn't fall off, everything will be fine, I suspect. That's the same axle flipped over, I think. Yeah, must be what we're looking at now. Oh, I've also got some 1mm thick double-sided foam tape, mounting tape, and I decided to get a strip of that, cut it down the middle or not, depending on how quickly I can do it with my ruler and my knife, and then I wrap that around to have another alternative go. And I can't see all of this. Oh yeah, there it is built, very slightly convex. And I decide in the end that this is what I prefer. I actually leave the tire on this for about 24 hours, 48 hours, and it seems to squash it down and take the correct set rather than being a bit convex. So I'm glad I didn't try to true it straight away. Obviously, I had to take away the stickiness from one side of the double-sided tape, otherwise it would have stuck the tire down straight away and not worked. So I used a bit of lighter fluid to take that off. Back to the Amcar, and what I've done with the Amcar is I've done the same thing as you saw me doing with the other car, and that was putting it on the flat plate and then sticking a spacer underneath the guide tongue. And I managed to lift it, and I lifted it far more than I wanted to in the first bath. In the second bath, I didn't put a spacer underneath the bit, and I put a magnet underneath, and I put a magnet on top, hoping that the two magnets would pull towards one another and pull the guide tongue back down somewhat. It didn't. No. So this was the third bath, where I also have a magnet underneath, and I have a couple of magnets on top, and I have, for security, a rubber band around the thing to make sure the thing pulls back down. And I made a mistake. Because it hadn't gone soft enough to change the shape in the second bath, I decided this time to pour the water from the kettle in this vicinity. And it's more than likely that I ruined the chassis before I'd even put it in the oven to cool down, because this is what I got out.
Lovely.
Yeah. Did you show this last week, or is this what you showed to me or something? I feel like I've seen this.
You showed it afterwards, right? But I was making the comment about British cooking and how you guys overcook everything.
Over.
So just to kind of remind you, we've only got 40 minutes left in the recording.
I'm back. Even the body posts are pointing towards one another.
Are you going to the full build of your amateur car as well, or?
I'm signing off, guys. See you next week.
See you, Petruccio.
See you, Petrucci.
Yeah.
See you, Petrucci.
I've got to go early morning.
So, after the chat, I put a play out for a chassis base plate for a replacement for the AM car, and this was what Leo showed me in the chat after the chat last week. He says, "I've got this," and as you can see, it's almost a complete car. It's just got a no nose on the body shell. So I shot these photographs with my phone during the chat, and he said, "You can have this if you like."
Yeah.
So I needed to find out which way around, what was what on the chip.
Hey, there might be sorry, Wayne, there might be another pinion on that car too.
There is, but it's not going to be a plain shaft pinion. It's going to be a spline shaft pinion, just like this Scalextric one that I've already got on it at this time. So they're not going to work for me. And 924 doesn't work for me either because it's the wrong ratio. And still need to do some.
Oh, gone again.
Obviously, Bill Gates.
I found the button.
Yeah.
Can we say anything
gonged
out
him.
loud?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to do my show until before.
Go, Greg.
Go.
If Wayne comes back, he's just going to have to wait.
Hurry up.
All right. Jeez, guys. Worse than me. All right. So, nope. Gosh darn it. Everything changed while I was. All right. Here we go. So I'm gonna kind of quickly go through a project that I'm working on. You should be seeing a chassis on your screen on a ruler. So step one. So this is the very first chassis I've ever done CAD from scratch, and this is to as a thank you and a payback or whatever you want to call it for Kelly, because he has that large SCX car collection, but he's converting to Scalextric digital, so he needs chassis for his favorite SCX cars that will take a Scalextric digital chip easily and not have to replace absolutely everything. So he sent me 2 cars. This is the SCX Car of Tomorrow Ford Fusion chassis. So step one for me when I'm doing a CAD for something like this is to take a picture from as perfectly top down as I can with a ruler, and then I calibrate my CAD using those pictures. More and more pictures. I take some from the side as well. So the first thing that I did was figure out how to make a pod go in a thing. So that's a test print of something that holds the SCX, pod that it's got everything. And there's the top side of it, and then there's a mostly finished chassis, and then I put some more parts in there. Got the DPR door to fit, kind of make sure it all goes together. And then there's some other parts, and then this is the chassis that I just finished printing today. I didn't properly fit it to the car because I think I have a couple other changes to make, but I added the front splitter stuff and kind of did some other tweaks to make it fit better, be more like the real chassis. So I kind of wanted to give you guys a fun treat of also seeing the CAD happen from the beginning. And AutoCAD has, or not AutoCAD, but Fusion 360 has this nifty thing where it will play back the major things from the start to the finish. So here's the finished chassis. Let me make sure there we go. So that's the finished chassis. And you will see my process. I'm not a CAD expert, but you'll see me doing all kinds of weird things starting now. So first sketch, use the pictures as a template, adding in all the bits and pieces that hold the pod in, just make a frame. Then I work on the front things that hold the removable stub wheels for the front. Added the DPR door, side pods, screw posts, shaping things out, added the back table kind of thing, added the guide holder, added a little tag there for myself. Finally got around to adding the front splitter and bumper section, and then tweaking the back end so it's at an angle rather than flat, cleaning it up a little bit. And that was a couple of days of work right there in a minute.
That's awesome.
Excellent. You didn't think about adjustable front axle blocks, Greg?
You know, the goal of this project was to make as much parts from the SCX to move into.
Okay.
So he did not have to replace anything that wasn't absolutely necessary to be replaced.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, I mean, if he was looking at doing, you know, I could have done this for a slotted pod instead of the SCX pod, you know, and I could have done pillow blocks for the front axle with adjustable, all that stuff. But the hope is that he basically gets the car, you know, takes the parts out of the old car, sticks them in the new chassis, and screws it. And the only thing he'll need to add is a guide, and then, you know, wires, and then he's good to go. In fact, the pod works the exact same way as SCX, so it's continuing to use the motor tabs that, you know, the little feet that push down on the chassis to be the suspension for the pod.
That is really, really cool.
And
really well done.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm actually quite proud of it as my first attempt at a functional rolling chassis, and I'll be sending, you know, a dozen of these things over to Kelly to switch his NASCAR collection over. As far as I can tell, although I've not experimented yet, all the COT, the Car of Tomorrow chassis are identical, although they are labeled, you know, like this one was labeled Ford Fusion and I have an Impala. They look identical. Hopefully they are identical in every other way.
I think it was the Tampo printing that was really different because the cars were essentially the same.
Yeah, I mean, but the name of the car is molded into the actual injection molded of the chassis. So that gave me a pause for concern, but I'm not super concerned about it. But also I'm going to do an Aero version because he's got a bunch of Aero cars to do the same conversion to. So I'll be testing that chassis. You know, you saw pictures of it fitted to a car. So I'll be throwing some wires in there and throwing it around a track. I expect it to function, and that's all that's important at this point. It's not going to be a, you know, competition. You know, it's not going to be an oxygen 24-hour car or anything like that.
Well, you're creating a series unto itself, right?
I mean, it basically would be in Kelly's house. But of course, once I'm satisfied with it, I'll upload it, and people can do their own conversions and printing and whatnot too. Does anybody have any questions on that? I think that was pretty straightforward.
Can you do it faster again? Could you do it faster next time, do you think?
I'll do my best, Wayne. Sorry about that. I'm sorry I took so long.
It was personal development rather than you know, anything else. I just I apologize, by the way. My laptop obviously did a reboot for an update or something.
Oh, there's Windows for you. I think your question was, will the next chassis take as long or will it be faster for me?
Yeah, it will be faster, won't it? You've gained the experience.
Of course, the experience helps. I mean, the reason I did this relatively well is from all my past experience doing other projects. And I finally felt comfortable enough to go ahead and take a whack at this one. And I'm quite happy with how it turned out.
Greg, if you can do one for a 935, we've got our first worldwide slot car chat production car.
I mean, maybe I will. Once I get that in hand, maybe I'll do. I doubt it because I'll have an awesome Dennis Sampson chassis to under it.
But therein lies your pattern.
So here's the thing. So one of the main reasons, I mean, reason number one was I finally felt confident enough to try a chassis. But reason number two was I don't really like scratch building cars, and I have no cars that I desperately need to put a chassis under. So I had no personal need to design a chassis. Plenty of other great chassis designers out there designing great chassis for cars. Kelly has a need that was not being fulfilled, and I thought that I might be able to fill it, and it looks like I might have accomplished that task. So, you know, need fulfilled. So I'm happy.
Well done, Greg.
And the arrow should be much easier. I mean, it'll be adjusting one number for the wheelbase, and then I'll have to redo the splitters and the tail end and stuff like that. But generally, the arrow should come together pretty quickly. So thank you,
Hey, Greg.
Yes, sir.
I just as kind of some input on this meeting. So this is an area that I'd be interested in getting more information about. And I in terms of, building the chassis, and, they have all of these different bodies out there. And, I'm really unclear on how you match those up. So if I go out on the web and I'm looking, I've got Carrera Digital, and these are 32nd scale standard cars, they come in the kit. Well, what can I print? And I would love to know the secret sauce in terms of how you can determine that, or if there's a standard or something like that, or if it's just print and pray and,
No, don't print and pray. Don't print and pray. It's a real simple answer. If the thing that you want to print does not specifically say that is for your specific brand and model, and even possibly, the year of the thing that you're trying to print it for, don't print it.
Don't bother. Gotcha.
You can't get a chassis that was designed for a Fly Porsche and stick it under a Carrera Porsche. It's not
right.
Vice versa, between brands and all that. Even if the main thing is, where are all the mechanical parts inside the original chassis, and how is that designed to mate with the original body, and is the new chassis got them all in the same places, and then, are the screw posts in the same place, and all that kind of stuff. So the hardest part for me designing this chassis was, I got out my calipers and measured, how big the hole was for the pod, but I had to do some, eyeballing, to figure out, where certain things were. I couldn't actually measure. I had to eyeball it, and then I had to test. I had to print and test and print and test. And I've got 3 or 4 chassis prints that aren't going to be on a track ever. They're going right into the recycling bin or the garbage because of the mismatches. So in the CAD, I'll be able to say, okay, well, that wasn't 5 millimeters. That was 5.5 millimeters to get the screw holes to line up. That happened multiple times. And that's exactly why the thing that you want to print has to be very specifically designed to go with the thing that you want it to go with.
Well, perfect. So I'll just start scratch building them myself then. And everything will look like a city bus. As long as it's rectangular, that's all that matters, right?
And that's why a lot of us who get into printing start to get into the CAD, because it's like, well, it doesn't exist. Nobody else is doing it. Nobody else apparently wants it or wants to do it, so I need to do it. Therefore, I am doing it.
Well, what you're really doing, Greg, it's digital sculpting, right? That's really what it is.
Yeah, except I can use. It's easier to. What I'm doing is measurable rather than. I'm not going to be doing a body ever, if not anytime. But hopefully that addresses that question.
Thank you.
We talk for hours about all kinds of things. Charles has had his electronic hand up for a while. What you got for us today, Mr. Gibke? I asked to unmute. There you go.
I think I'm unmuted. I don't know why it says Charles. I usually go by Chuck, so that's one thing. But all these pretty cars you guys have been showing, I think it's time to show an ugly car. So I have here. I just got this today. This is a Revell. Baja Dune buggy. It's kind of dirty and it's missing a driver's head and one of the headlights and the roll bar. But hey, this should fill the bill for all those who need an ugly car to look at.
Have you got the brown track to go along with it, Chuck?
It's actually yellow.
Oh, yellow. Sorry, yellow. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have that. I've been actually cleaning some of it today. It was horribly dirty. And more than I thought. So I've got some pieces working, but yeah, it's a little bit different thing to work with. Yeah.
Well, if you need tips on cleaning, just ask Dewan.
I was using some of his tips and a couple of tools he sent me already. So yeah.
Awesome.
That's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. I have tons of that track.
You have tons of all track, don't you, Dewan?
Yeah, I have tons of different kinds of track, but I have probably about at least a couple hundred pieces of the Baja track at least.
And the problem with that is,
I mean, technically, no, it's not a problem.
It's a lot of labor. A lot of labor.
Better in your possession than a landfill.
Yes.
Well, Mr. DCor has his electronic hand up. What else you got for me today, Mr. DCor? And would you like me to call you a different name?
Oh, you could just call me Bill.
All right, Bill, what you got?
So kind of going back to what you were just talking about with CAD and how you kind of have to, when you want something and it hasn't been made, you kind of figure it out. So one of the things that I've found, I've been working on this track, and this 3D printer has been going for, a couple of months now. And what I've been doing, and I'll switch this around, and I apologize. Hopefully I don't screw up the camera stuff too much here. Let me see. There we go. So I've been printing pieces that are kind of like this, basically where you've got shoulder pieces. And then I've got these smaller pieces. I found these out there. Simple, easy to print. And then I just drill a hole in the top, and it makes an easy crash fence.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, these things are all good. Well, one of the things that every piece is 3 connections to secure it, or 3 clips. Mm-hmm. So I found one on Thingiverse, if I think AM Print, or one of them. Anyway, but they didn't work, or they didn't work for me unless you did supports. Unless you printed with supports, but it says literally in the details, it says, sorry, but it's going to be a PITA.
Yeah.
Well, so what I realized is that, and I'll move you guys over here, is if you've used Prusa Slicer since version 2.3, and this is the nerd or geek part of me, since version 2.3, you can now paint your supports where you want them.
Yeah.
So instead of having to go all the way down here, and then all the way down here, I can say, okay, well, I know my printer can hit the threshold here and here.
Yep.
So what that turns up, hang on, sorry for the slow there, or the turnaround. Let me show you. So this is the version. So you can see it's a very easy support. So what that's done, and then from there, I resized, changed the dimensions. This is tested on, just current day Carrera Digital 1/24th scale track. You can see here, I've got pieces here, and it snaps in like a charm. I mean, I don't have both hands to be able to do all of that, but so if anyone wants to test this for me, I am really hesitant to post it because it's one of those things that it's essentially, I'm an old IT support guy, so I don't have time to do a bunch of support calls. But I'm cool if somebody could say, hey, yeah, this works. I'd love to share it because heck, they're not hard to do.
Well, Bill,
you can post that on.
You can post it. I was going to say those look better than the supplied Carrera connectors.
Well, so here's the one. There's the Carrera one.
Yeah.
And then here's mine. Now you'll see here, basically right here, or all you have to do is basically, I'm not going to be able to, basically you just cut that little support right there. It pops off. They go all over the place, but that's, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I can't claim the credit for having created it. But I've modified it and made it useful to where you're not spending 15 minutes. So now I can do 8 of them at a time. It takes me about an hour and a half maybe, and I'm done.
So did you modify the model at all, or just a better way to do the supports?
Yeah, I modified the model, and that's also something you can do in Prusa Slicer. I learned this the other day, and that's where you can just go into the view here. You select your part, right click, and there's an option right there. Export as STL. And so you can make your modifications and do a quick export right within there. You don't even, so.
Well, that's what I'm asking. What modifications did you do to the STL?
Oh, just in terms of the sizes. So I went down here and I modified down here 0.26 inches. And I mean, this was like 0.252 print, 2.53, et cetera. I hope I'm explaining that properly, but essentially just, very basically down to the 100th of an inch and just testing and testing.
So you resized the model, but you didn't go into you didn't do any CAD work on it. You just resized it the way you printed it.
Resized, and then I dropped this extra layer here, but no, otherwise no. I mean, there's not much to it. That's the whole thing. And that's why I'm kind of like, hey, I figured out what I could do here. And so the size you get off that page is not gonna fit anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what I would do is
I'm not making things.
You can upload that back to Thingiverse, credit the author who made the first one, and then just put work in progress. That way you don't get crushed by people asking questions.
Or post a comment to his thing and say, I found it worked better when I scaled the Z up by, I mean, it didn't even show, maybe that was after you did the export and stuff, but you scaled it up a very small amount. That could be attributable to, the original design might have been functional for him because of the inaccuracies of his printer, or vice versa. There might be some more calibration you can do on your printer to make it so that his original model did actually function properly.
Yeah, I couldn't actually fit his in the slot at all. Doesn't mean that it doesn't work on his. It wasn't working on mine, on the Prusa. But yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying is basically it's working for me. Yeah. So if anybody wants to try it, I'm happy to share it. Just send it over the HRW forums. You can find me there. The other thing I wanted to point out, and this is something that I've learned just recently, and this comes down to, or something I want to remind people about when they're doing their 3D printing. And that's, I'm in a garage here, and I've been printing and printing, over 24 hours a day pretty much. And all of a sudden I started getting, in the last few weeks, I started getting really bad, just warping. And you can see it's just horrible. And I couldn't figure it out. And it's the one commonality is they were all happening while, in the middle of the night. Well, what I realized is the temperature is now dropping enough now that we're hitting winter or getting into winter. I had this sitting out on the table, and because every time I put it in the enclosure, it will, that's when the printer decides it doesn't want to work anymore. And then I have to take it out and fix it. So it's almost, I wish I could say it was something more than that, but that's basically it. But I found that now, so like in this case here, this thing's coming up just great from the standpoint. And you can see I'm obviously very sensitive about my brims and warpage, but now it comes out just fine. And so I just wanted to remind people, if you're having trouble with warping or whatever, take a look at the temperature and maybe look at an enclosure on that. Again, I don't know what I'm doing on most of this. I just know what worked for me.
Sure.
Or, what fixed this really quickly.
Can I give you some other tips?
Oh, yeah.
So I have the Prusa Mark III as well. And I print all year long with no enclosure on one of my machines. I have another machine with an enclosure specifically for ABS. Are you printing with ABS or PLA?
This is PLA plus.
PLA plus. I've not used PLA plus. Maybe it has some warping tendencies like ABS does. But what I've found over the couple of years I've been printing with my Prusas is that the PEI coated smooth sheet that you've got on there will hold anything, regardless of how good your first layer is at the beginning. And then it won't hold quite as well. And so then you realize your first layer wasn't perfect. And so you retune your first layer and things start working fairly well for a long period of time. But then over time, even that isn't good enough. And so people say, wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol. That I do that before every print. People say clean it. Yep. People say clean it with soap and water in the sink like a dish with Dawn detergent to make sure you get off all of any oil residue. Because if you're cleaning with IPA, and the paper towel has some kind of quicker picker-upper additives, that might actually come off onto your plate. So make sure you use the cheapest possible paper towels you can find so that there don't have any additives in it. And the last resort is actually scrub or scuff the PEI. I use quadruple zero steel wool on mine, and I actually scrub it in multiple directions. I go back and forth horizontally, I go back vertically, and then I go back and forth diagonally over the entire sheet. And basically what you're doing is you're micro abrading that surface.
Etching.
You're basically etching that surface, and then make sure you scrub the heck out of it to make sure that any steel wool particles are washed away, and then do it again. And because what I have found with my experience is that with PLA, even in a cold or Washington garage,
oh, it's bendy.
It sticks down if you have proper adhesion. And there's no problem. I don't need a brim. I don't need anything to hold PLA down. You might need to up the temperature of your bed. I don't know what your bed temperature tends to be, but with the generic PLA settings in Prusa Slicer, I've found that it's not a problem. I don't need an enclosure for PLA. I need an enclosure for ABS because the models that you're printing, based on the geometry of those models, they're going to want to warp. So as the upper layers cool, they're going to want to pull, they're going to contract and want to pull up the lower layers from the bed if the adhesion isn't just stellar. And I noticed that when you pulled that up, the brim stayed on the plate. That might be because they still have a gap between the brim and the model because of elephant foot compensation.
Okay.
The alpha version rectifies that problem, but the brim should stay stuck to your model until you pull it away. Because if your model came up that easily and the brim stayed down, that's not going to prevent warping.
Well, and that was kind of, it seemed a little, I mean, it seems like it's helped, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, I don't really understand why it's sticking around when it's that loose, but yeah, no, that's right.
That would have stayed put just fine without that brim, because obviously when you peeled the model up and the brim stayed, the brim wasn't really doing much. It stayed stuck down probably because, you've got your enclosure and that's helping keep overall things warm. Generally, that's not bad for PLA because it cools down so easily. So, the thing you want to watch out for printing PLA in an enclosure is what they call creep, which is where over time the cold end of the extruder will get too warm because it can't dissipate heat enough because it's in an enclosure, and the filament gets soft where it should not be soft, and then it just kind of mooshes in the cold end and you get a jam. So with high things like ABS and ASA and whatnot, that's not a problem. With your PLA Plus, that might not be a problem either because the additives make it more temperature resilient. So, might not be an issue.
Yeah, the PLA Plus is basically, I guess, my understanding of it is it's a kind of a cleaned up version of PLA. And maybe, I'm sure some other folks probably know more on that. But I prefer PTG, honestly, but it's one of those things that I've just seen so much stuff here that's seems to be on, PLA. I'm playing it conservative. Now, in terms of the overall, I've turned off the lights kind of for the webcast more, but I don't know if you could see, but there is a right down here is essentially where the printing of the corners or the what do you call it? The shoulders are, and then all of the fences. So you could see it's been a little neurotic. And I've finally gotten my money's worth, which is good. And then, other than that, I've started on some foam work, but that's for another day. The foam, what do you call it?
It's looking great, man.
Well, the foam cutter died on me within about 4 days, I think. So that was, I'll figure that part out. It's kind of bits and starts, but yeah, we're making progress. So the cool part about it is there's so many different angles to work at, and whether it's 3D printing or the foam or whatever, I could just kind of say, I don't want to do that right now. There's always a billion other things I can work on. So anyhow, thanks for the tips on the 3D printing. And again, you know, if anybody wants to try out one of these clips, just, you know, give me a shout. And, you know, I just want to make it easier.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, probably the easiest way to share that, especially with your trick on the supports, is to save it as a BMF file, save it as a project file.
Yep, I got that too. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Because it saves all of that stuff. It saves the support settings and the scaling and all that.
Yeah, I've got a copy of that, so that works.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Right, thanks, Greg.
Is anybody else got anything you want to share? We're coming down to less than 10 minutes. Wayne, did you want to keep talking about your?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, Frank was asking about Club Corner if we want to do that quickly.
Yeah, we don't have time. I don't think Dennis has. Dennis, do you have just one picture to share? Because I don't think we have.
Yeah, sure. I could. I've got it ready. So here we go.
Go ahead, Dennis. Wayne, we'll pick up on your build next week. Hopefully, we'll hear all about that.
All right. So this is a photo of the circuit that we ran in. It's a city called Port Elizabeth. It's on the southeast coast of South Africa, and the 55th consecutive national championship event in South Africa was run there, and that was why I was there. South African Model Car Association was formed in 1966, and the first national championship was run that year in the same city, Port Elizabeth, but not on the same track, obviously, and not the same club. This is it's in another half of a building that houses in its other half a diesel engine repair shop and so on. And so it's like this big concrete building with it. But they have a very nice place here with some little display cabinets against the wall, and around the corner back in that back far corner there's like a little lounge area and a kitchenette, and there's it has all of that kind of stuff. So it's really pretty nice. These are photos taken from the driver's stand, so that you can see direction of travel is from your right to your left, so from top right to bottom left down this main straightaway in front of you. The whole track is 145 feet or somewhere around there. This little bus stop area through this back end where my cursor is one of the more difficult pieces, even though it doesn't look it, because there's a bit of a variation in the braid depth there. But in general, it's a nice track. A couple of little wiggles. They have a little bit of scenery on it, which is kind of nice, which you don't see often on club tracks. But yeah, it's really good. And then the same as most South African and I think a lot of British clubs, the drivers stand on an elevated podium that I managed to fall off the very first day I was there. But that's another story. And it gives you a better view of the whole track. Let's let it load for a moment. I think you'll probably see, just to give you an idea of the speed of the things. This is going to take too long. It's going to take too long, sorry. These are just all the results. Oh, that was, this is the entry for one class, which was their production class, which is stamped steel, or 1/24th scale, stamped steel chassis with 16D motors. Some really, really pretty bodies. But these two particularly painted by a guy in Argentina.
Yeah, look at the beautiful blue and yellow car.
Yeah, there's a bit. I thought you might like that.
Very,
there's a couple.
Very rare.
Yeah,
very rare. Yeah. That one was just to show that I actually did. I almost made it. This was the expert class final. I came in third in production. These are the GT12 cars. So these have the spring steel chassis and different non-scale high downforce type of bodies that we use on those. And then this photo I took just to, because I realized that for once in my life, I could see 6 drivers on the stand and only 2 of them were over 60, which is unusual these days.
Well,
right?
that's good. That means there's hope. There's hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much.
The young lady who was driving there, her name is Louise. She comes from another one of the coastal cities, just a little bit further north on the coast, called East London. She and her father race, and she whipped my butt, man. She's good. She really is.
I like that podium setup. It's really,
like
it really is
yeah,
nice. Yeah, that's thoughtful of them.
All of the clubs are like that, and it just gives you 2 things. It gives you a good view of things. It basically takes the turn marshals out of the equation, and then it also stops you from leaning over and grabbing your car and getting in the other driver's way. You know, you have to. That's something else.
Oh,
that was my mother. Just.
Well, that's the best reason to go.
Yeah, and that I think that says it all about age.
Yeah, everything.
All right, so that's just me, guys.
That's awesome. That's
third,
awesome.
Coming in third on a track that you don't race on with a bunch of people you don't race against.
Yep,
that's good.
I was really happy with that result. Yeah, and I should really have won that race, but I had a couple of troubles. Yeah.
I also like, Dennis, that there's a nice touch on the pit out. They put the Team Gunston fly.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
There, yeah. If you look around the track all over the place, there's a bunch of little 1/32 scale cars. There was a Team Gunston fly chevron here. A little further back in the pit lane were the other Gunston fly cars, the Lola and the Porsche. Things like that, yeah. So yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of scenery around the track.
Dennis, I see you had the fastest lap as well.
I did.
Did you not get an extra point? Did you not get an extra point for that?
No, unfortunately, they don't.
That ain't real. You know,
I was annoyed. I think at that stage, and I was driving the living hell out of that car in that. The white lane on that track, which is like almost one of the middle 2, is actually very, very fast, and I was pedaling as hard as I could. Now, that was in the production class. To run a 5.0 in the production class is pretty good, but once we got to the GT12s, we were down in the 4.3s and 4.4s, so we were nearly a second a lap faster than that. So yeah, that was the story, guys. Fun. This is my buddy Russell Sheldon, and another old friend from Pretoria, Anthony Bithry, and this is Henny Petzer. He is the father of that young lady that I was talking about earlier on. They were the scrutineers, and so all the cars were checked before we started. What they do as well, just out of interest, is they have these. Like little trays with all the lane colors on it. This is the pre-race paddock, and you have to have your car presented and put down in there with its lane sticker on at least 1 heat, or if possible 2 heats before you drive. And then you go up onto the stand, and the turn marshal will actually place your car on the track, and there's no warm-up laps or anything. You put the car down and the race starts from there. And then when you're done, you pick it up. You have maybe 1 or 2 heats of break so that you can re-prepare, and then you bring it back and you put it down in the next your next heat as you go through. That's me.
Sounds like a great time, Dennis. And on that, we'll go ahead and end the recording. As always, if you can come to a live chat, please do. It's a lot of fun. Until then, we'll say goodbye.
See you guys. Really